All right. Hello. Welcome to BigSkyBits. I am your host, Colby, and today we're going to be going over just some of the recent news. We've got a lot of stuff. This most recent article, or the one I want to get into, comes down to a more philosophical approach. The company OpenAI, operated by Sam Altman, has recently made a lot of news about their desire to have government involvement or maybe some government subsidies or government pushing forward the infrastructure, the data centers, the chip production that will spur on the artificial intelligence industry. And I guess my one big concern when you really look at this and take a bigger macro view of it is, what does this really do to the industry as a whole? What are its incentives? Because when we look at Bitcoin and talk about what it does for the world, I like to look at it in a form of it's a way to incentivize people to behave. The whole network is a system of incentives to get miners to work with nodes, to work to propagate the system, and it works seamlessly together to facilitate this. Now, when we're looking at what some of these tech oligarchs want with expanding the data centers, the chip research, and getting a lot of government money to really prop up one or two companies, we see what we've seen in the past, and when the government picks winners or losers, it usually ends up bad and doesn't end up with the most robust marketplace, with the most options, the most competitive nature that pushes forward the best innovation. Rather, we have a system that kind of stifles innovation and picks winners or losers, and we don't stay as competitive. And I believe we will see that with AI, and China's already kind of pushing this forward, where in China, you're seeing a lot more of the AI models open source. And I think that'll give a more competitive nature to it as people take these open source models and tweak them to become their own models. And we have a big decentralization in different forms of AI models. The way the US is approaching it, and a lot of the oligarch or tech firms here want to go about it, is more secure their place as rich companies where the government protects them. If the government's going to invest in them, let's look back to previous examples of this, either here in the US or China. In the US, a good example I like to think of is the railroad system. On the East Coast, you saw how diverse the railroads were because there was more competition. There's a bigger network, and sure, many were torn down over time as they became less needed because of other forms of transportation. But at one time, it was a diverse network of railroads, often in competition for lower fares, safer trains. But as we expanded westward, there was this need or desire to push that industry forward. Let's get it going. Let's get people out to new parts of America. Let's just push this industry. And by doing that, the government really picked just a few companies that became winners and losers in this whole race. The government ended up subsidizing them, and in turn, those companies don't see the incentives to make their companies better. As technology advances, technology is deflationary. We're making tools and operations better, and we should be able to see the fruit of that by cheaper whatever it is the industry is automating, whether it's food, transportation, whatever. We should see the fruits of those labors, and the accumulation of human technology deflate the cost of those. But we have so many systems in place right now that protect rich oligarchs, the copyrights, the infringements, that it doesn't really allow us to have free market capitalism. I know a lot of people say, oh, we have crony capitalism. No, the cronyism is because of our social rules, the gaming of our system that people have been able to do to protect their interests. And this is what we have to protect against. And I think the best way to protect against it is to allow the market to do its own thing. But that's just a spiel. And you can see that in the American railroad system, the difference on coast to coast. Or like in China, you saw how they went through a big housing boom and wanted a lot of cities in certain places and thought if they built the cities, the people would come. And we saw skylines of just ghost cities and government not being able to fulfill their dreams. Governments often have these huge architecture, state planning ideas that are very hard to come to fruition. It's hard to understand how people or guess how people are going to react to something, and the government pushing it usually doesn't end up well. I would argue that the market forces, especially in the long run, create a competitive nature and the best gets pushed to the top. But that's just one example. I don't think we need to push this. I think the market will push it on its own. And rather than the government funding OpenAI or other big companies pushing for larger data centers, chip production, AI infrastructure, we need to allow the market. If people want to invest, the stock market will do that. We pay for the government out of our taxes. The people can pay for that out of their money. I just think that's how an open market works. So, moving on from that, I got a few other big articles I want to talk over. But let's just quickly go check out the price. It's been a bit brutal. I have a new place. I want to show you the price and stuff. But to look at some of the other projects, we see Bitcoin's been on a big tear down. Ethereum, everything's been on a tear down. Some of them like Solana 15%. I mean, Bitcoin's up there with 12. It's just been a bloodbath. Bitcoin's actually losing quite a bit in the dominance. You're having a few interesting ones that have shot up recently. Feels like perhaps a little off-season altcoin season that's all on a decline. Who knows? This is up for interpretation. Do with it as you will. But the new site I've been liking that I saw on Reddit the other day is newhedge.io. And here, he just put together a great homepage, our dashboard of all the relevant things that are happening. You have a news tracker over here. We can go down and see block rewards, difficulty adjustments, miner stats. We got stats on almost everything. What are the private companies? How much Bitcoin are they holding? There's just a lot of useful information here all in one. The different ranges of how much people are holding our wallets. I shouldn't say people because these would all just be associated with individual wallets, and people often split up their money into different segments. So looking around here, we're seeing quite a few interesting things. Bitcoin versus gold, profitable days, non-profitable over the year. It's very interesting. And here we are at a 7-day chart. Here we are at a 1 month, which gives us a little bit better of a look of how we recently topped, and then I've been on a slump. And over the year, slump back up, and yeah. I don't think it looks horrible, especially let's zoom out to a 5-year. I mean, that's looking pretty darn good over 5 years. Could we come back down? Yeah, I could totally see coming all the way back down to even like mid 70s. What's this over here? 72, I've been saying for a while. I think 72 is a real possibility if we dip, but I also see us. I think the faster we shoot up is the bigger thing. If we look at some of these other dips, if we look at this one, where is this? From January 11th. Early this year to boom May. So from January to May, that's about a 20% decrease we saw. That decrease happened in just a few months. Right now, 125. This is a similar 20% decrease. If we bounce up, let's say another month right at the beginning of the new year, and we shoot right back up to 125, and then we're hitting about 150, 160, I think that puts us perfectly in line with this larger trajectory. I mean, again, it's all up to interpretation. What are you seeing in the lines? And that's only for technical analysis, which I think the bigger, better question is, what is Bitcoin doing on the broader scale? Countries like France are adopting it. You're seeing the Czech Republic adopt it. We're seeing nationwide adoption. Sure, it's slow, sure, it's small, but we're seeing it, and it's very interesting. And I think as this continues, we're going to see the day where it's a race to get in. And Bitcoin has such a limited supply. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be caught on the sidelines. In fact, I'm trying to do everything I can to stay more involved and more invested in it. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the last couple topics. I don't think there was anything on Reddit other than some memes that were somewhat interesting. I mean, they probably talked about everything anyway. This was one interesting article was, holy cow, what is this? Economic Times. They send a lot of little things. Okay. OpenAI seeks the government infrastructure. This was just the article where I started going down this rabbit hole. The other big one was right here. Americans are heating their homes with the Bitcoin miners. And this was a CNBC article. And this is one of the main topics I go down all the time, is how the revolution will be using stranded energy, or energy we have available cheap, to power Bitcoin miners that'll allow for us to have a decentralized, not only monetary system, but in the future, quite a bit more. We can have a lot of our messaging systems, internet, based off the Bitcoin. And we can even change how the whole incentive structure works as a way to get rid of spam. And as you look into some of what Nostra, the protocol built on the Bitcoin Lightning Network, proposes, it really shows us what some of the technology can build. And I got a future episode where I'm working on right now about some of the things building on Cashew, another app within the Nostra ecosystem, or using that protocol. So, but this is an interesting article talking about how people are starting to heat their house. And we've seen other ones heating greenhouses, heating swimming pools. But I even know people personally who have just run a miner in their garage to use the ambient heat. Let's say it's a heater for some of your summer toys or something, because where we live, it gets quite cold. But using some of this leftover heat from the mining system, especially if you have leftover solar or wind energy, could be quite beneficial. Because I know quite a few people, especially in areas like Nevada or Arizona, were sold on getting solar powers and getting rebates from the power system, and a lot of that didn't work out too well. And now they have excess energy that they don't get any money for in return. Hence why a lot of people get an electric car. You can then charge that off that energy that you're creating. Or you can mine Bitcoin, heat your swimming pool outside so you have a nice temperature swimming pool, because those places still get cold at night. Maybe not parts of Arizona. Arizona gets hot. But you get the gist of it. I like this article because they do go over both sides of it. Some of the positives, which I've talked about in previous articles or podcasts, about how this could really work for the paradigm shift that's happening. How this is going to change how we interact. And it goes so much further than using the energy from the solar to power the miners, to heat your house, to then create a mesh network that goes from house to house, so we don't have to have all these centralized points of failure from a government standpoint, from a privacy standpoint. I can go on and on the list, and someday I'll try to get my mind focused and do that for you. But if you have any questions about this system that I believe is inevitable, please leave a or it doesn't have to be kind. Please leave a comment or a question down below. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Trying to get better at this, trying to do it more often, and I appreciate the love I get. Thank you. Some of the sites or social media provide more love than others. Some feel like a lot of bots. So still in the early stages, still testing out a lot, getting used to it. But here's an interesting right over here in Idaho, I didn't get down this far, did I? Yeah, so this is an interesting article. Feel free to go read it. It sounds like a few places are trying to heat their shops with Bitcoin mining. See, we can heat huge water tanks with it and then pump that water. Or, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I want to do in my Radiance system. So these are interesting articles that are showing that this is happening. Pay attention, please. And as I said, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it down below, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.